All right, what is up YouTube? We're back with another Awesomoto vlog. All right, so I want to take a quick break to update you on the channel. There's been a lot of stuff that's been going on in January, and I apologize for being a little bit light on videos. As you can see, I've got another distraction here. Picked up a dirt bike in January. Excited to show some content on that. Also, behind the camera here has been what's taking up the majority of my time for the past few months. I'm working on the development of a product / accessory for the GX470 that I'm very excited to announce to everybody. Stay tuned for more details on that. And lastly, there's been a lot of planning in the background. I'm going to be at the Southeast Adventure Vehicle Expo that is going to be in Stark, Florida. It is from March 1st through the 3rd. I'm going to be there in the Creators Corner, hanging out, networking with people, meeting some of you, and also doing some great off-roading. It's an entire weekend of camping and off-roading, and it's open to the public, so you can go to thesaveexpo.com to get yourself some tickets for that event. So for those who are going to be in attendance, I look forward to seeing you all there. Come stop by our booth and say hi. And for those who can't be in attendance for this year, look out for some awesome videos kind of recapping all the content of that weekend. So I couldn't be more excited for how the first month of 2024 has gone. I'm very excited for this new product announcement, which I should be able to talk to you soon about. And additionally, I can't wait for the Save Expo in just 3 weeks from now. So that's it for the channel updates. Let's get back to the vlog. So the day has finally come. It is time to replace our rear drive shaft. And a while back, this is a brand new drive shaft that's just been sitting in my garage. So if you've been following the channel, you know that a while back I did a front drive shaft replacement, and that drive shaft was seriously defective. It was squeaking like crazy. There's actually pieces of metal shim just hanging out, rubbing on stuff. It was so loud, very obnoxious, and that thing was long overdue. And I accidentally ordered a rear drive shaft, and I did not need it at the time, but I knew I'd just keep it anyways because I knew the time would come, and I assumed it would probably be not much longer than when the front one went, that the rear would go. But due to time's sake, and in that video, I knew it was just my front drive shaft. I only replaced that at the time, and I kept this hanging around in the garage so that I could replace it whenever the time came. And now the time has come. I'm about to do a long trip. Got a pretty long, like 3,000 mile drive, and I want to make sure that I have the rear drive shaft replaced. Not because of the trip entirely, but also because I'm starting to notice something that around 55 to 65 miles an hour when I'm on highways, there's a oscillation coming from the rear end, and it's only with throttle input, which is a little odd because I thought if it was drive shaft related that it would be also while the vehicle is rolling. But at certain speeds, I get these funky oscillations in the rear end, similar to what was happening here in the front. Just not nearly as pronounced. So I'm pretty sure it's time for that to be changed. And just for peace of mind, I think it's time to do the rear drive shaft and just make sure that everything's new back there. So I'm probably not going to go into as much detail, but I do want to kind of bring you along for the install. In that previous video, which I'll link down below or try to put up here in the corner if I can figure out how to get that video linked up there. So in that video, I showed a very detailed way on how to install it. You're going to want a paint marker. It saves you on marking things so that you get the right phase orientation on your drive shaft. Go watch that video if you want to see like every single step-by-step detail. For here, I'm doing the rear drive shaft, and I wasn't going to film at all, but I figured I should bring you along for the install just in case I run into anything that's different or more challenging for the rear. I want to make sure I document all those details for you. So let's just get into the install. Got our new drive shaft here. I'll put part numbers for everything I use in the video down below. GX is already up on the lift, so let's just get started and get that old drive shaft out. All right, so here we are again. This feels like deja vu. Got the transfer case in neutral and put the car in neutral as well, and you can see we can now freely spin the drive shaft. And I did a little bit of a play test the way I did in the previous video for the front drive shaft, and I can't get nearly as much play here. I can get a little bit back here, none at the front, but I think some of this play might be the reason why I'm getting those oscillations at higher speeds with drive input, because there's load getting put through this drive shaft when I accelerate. So I think in general it's time for a change. So I'm just going to go through like we did in the previous video with a paint pen and mark all 4 locations on here so you get the right phase on the drive shaft. So for this we're just going to do a 1, 0, 1, 2, and 3. So For 0, we don't put any at all, so that'll be the other side over there. You just make sure it's going to be, spin the drive shaft and mark it again. So just do 1, 2, and 3 lines to indicate where things are. Alright, so the nice thing about the drive shaft being freely rotatable is you can always rotate it and keep your bottom bolts facing you, so it's easier for you to get an impact on there or a wrench just to kind of have a better location, because up on the top here it's just hard to get any tools in that area. Alright, so with the rear marked, we're going to go up here to the transfer case side of the drive shaft and do the same thing. Alright, so I'm going to let that paint dry for a couple minutes and then we'll go to town on taking these bolts out and removing the drive shaft. A 14mm with an impact is pretty good at getting these loose. Just keep rotating and hitting the bottom bolt. Alright, so up here at the transfer case, we'll hit these front bolts as well. Alright, so I'm going to finish taking the rest of these bolts out with a 14mm crescent wrench, and when you get them out, then you should be able to wiggle and get the drive shaft to pull out from underneath. Alright, so last bolt on the back end here. Alright, so we should be able to kind of just rotate this, drop it down on an angle. There we go. Alright, let's get this out and mark up the new one and throw some grease in it. Alright, so I covered this in the previous video, but here I am just repeating myself. I just feel like maybe I should cover most of the details so that you guys can follow this along. But if you have more questions, like I said, the other video is a really good watch. I cover a lot of these details, and really the next thing we need to do here is we need to grease the drive shaft. So we've got inside the front end here, we've got a little valve here. It's a Schrader valve. You can go in, and really what you want to do is these are painted, and so you just need to go through with a screwdriver or a razor blade and just scrape the paint off of there. So you can see this valve's covered in paint from factory. Just scrape it off. There's a Schrader valve inside of both ends of your U-joint, so get that on both sides. Alright, so now you want to hit your grease gun on all these joints. And so you want to just slip your grease gun on there, hit that with 2 to 3 pumps, and then what I like to do is I like to align both my drive shafts, the front side of them. There's a slight bit of difference in the length on the new drive shaft versus the old one. The new drive shaft is a little bit shorter than the old. That's because the old one has grease in it. So what you want to do is you want to apply grease to this Schrader valve here, and when you apply grease, you'll see it starts to expand and lengthen the new drive shaft. So you just want to do that until your drive shaft's about the same length as the one you just took out, because that should give you an idea of how much grease needs to be put in there. I think what it ends up being is you need about a solid 10 to 12 pumps maybe. Alright, so for the next part here, we just want to go ahead and do paint marker on the new drive shaft to mark those points. And once you do that, you should be ready to install. Alright, so I want to take the new drive shaft that you just marked up and greased, and we're going to put the front end in here first. Alright, so once you find your clocking and make sure that's on the right way, just kind of throw your drive shaft up there, or grab one of your nuts and washers here and slide it into place, and just keep spinning and putting on the next bolt and nut washer combo until you got all 4 on, and then we'll make our way to the back there and tighten those up too. Alright, so we got the front side into place, and then we're just going to move on here to the rear and make sure you got your clocking right. Over here we got That's that 2, and that's 1. That looks correct. So I'm just gonna kind of slide this, or attempt to slide this into place. And there we go. Nice and easy. So this is, just for reference for you guys, this is just such an easy DIY type of job. This would probably cost you a lot of money at a dealership. And as you can see, hopefully it's obvious how easy this is, but it's 4 bolts on each side and some grease thrown in there. It's so straightforward. You definitely always want to go OEM for the drive shafts, because I hear nightmare stories about non-OEM drive shafts and them not being balanced properly and the issues we run into with that. So you're better off going OEM for these. Pretty much in all major component cases, you want to go OEM, Toyota, Lexus, just because you're gonna get better quality, and it's just something for a major component you just don't want to risk going aftermarket on. So you might need your 14mm crescent wrench on the back here to do this, but you're going to want to hit these for tightening at 65 foot-pounds. So make sure you get your torque wrench set for that spec, and you want to tighten these down to that. This is something you want to make sure you do the right torque spec on, because it's your drive shaft, and it's a pretty important component. So don't skimp on the torque spec here, and make sure you get it to that 65 foot-pound. All right, so we got the entire drive shaft into place, everything torqued down to our 65 foot-pounds of torque on these bolts, and that's really it. That's your drive shaft replacement. This is a super easy to do job, so for any of you who want to save some money, and you hear some of these strange oscillations at different speeds, you want to check your drive shaft, do the shake test when this thing's immobilized, when you go through and put everything in neutral and you shake this U-joint. If you got some play there, it's most likely a drive shaft issue. On these higher mileage GX470s, you're just going to run into a lot of issues with that. All right, well, I'm gonna end things here. If you found this video helpful at all, hit that like button down below, or subscribe if you're interested in seeing more GX470 videos like this one. Also, if you want to support the channel and support the cause of creating these types of videos, I sell merchandise. It's Awesomoto.tv. You can pick up some merch on my website. It goes towards more of these videos. You can pick up yourself some jet tag keychains, air fresheners, sticker packs, and all sorts of cool t-shirt designs, even one with the GX470 on it. All right, well, I'm gonna end things here. Thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.